other than at the local level. And there is no state in the federation where there is a particular area in that state where it is not covered by any local government authority anyway. Even in the federal government, unless, of course, except Abuja, where it's the federal capital territory, which is not a state. But every inch and part of Nigeria, for example, with the exception of Abuja, is covered by a state. Now, every part of each state is covered by a local government. Now, if those local governments have physical or political authorities, and then the state government should be an administrative, like an administrative coordinator of those local governments. That's basically what it should be. So I think this comparison with other countries, it makes a lot of sense, but these are countries that are built on federalism where states have their individual constitutions. With the exception of the Nigerian constitution, there is no state in this country where you would go and find a single document called a codified laws of that particular state. I don't think there is.
So the way it is now, can we then say for so many states that have refused for whatever reason to conduct the local government elections, they are on course and doing the right thing, since they have been able to put some administrators there to run the affairs of such municipalities or local governments?
No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's absolutely wrong.
Why do you say so?
Well, because those are, the Constitution is very clear that they are a tier of government. The local government is recognized by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And they are supposed to be run by elected officials. It is not supposed to be at the whims and caprice of the state governors to do as they please. Just like the states cannot be administratively run by sole administrators appointed by the president unless there is a state of emergency or state of martial law in case of insecurity. If they can't do that, if the federal government cannot do that to the states, why should the states do that to the local governments?
Who do you think should be in charge of creating local governments?
Well, the Constitution clearly states that it's the state's House of Assembly that have that authority.
So how is this going to work? I mean, because if the State House of Assembly can create local government, in other words, a state can have as many local governments as it wants to create, how do you think this is going to work with local governments now going to get allocations directly from the federal government?
That is why I said the Constitution is in itself self-contradictory in many respects. But if we are to implement it the way it is, most of the local governments that are already recognized by the Constitution are local governments that were created by the federal government during the military regimes. That's what we have. Now, what we have created by democratically elected civilian governors in many states, and sometimes you can remember the battle between the Lagos state and the federal government during the Obasanjo time and Tinubu on the issue of creating local development control areas or whatever it is that they call them, where allocations were withdrawn purposely for those reasons. And then it systematically introduces a lot of chaos all around, administrative and political chaos. But what I'm saying is, there is a constitution that recognizes 774 local governments, a constitution that agrees that the National Assembly should allocate statutory resources from the federal government to those 774 local governments. Let's implement that first.
So, I mean, it seems we have ourselves in a total mess here, because only 774 local governments will most likely be, I mean, the ones created or recognized by the Constitution, will be getting any revenue from the federal government. What happens to the other local governments that have been created by the states?
They should be funded strictly by the states through their internally generated revenue.
Doesn't mean that they're not recognized by the Constitution, since the Constitution gives the states' houses of assembly the powers to create local governments?
They are not recognized by the Constitution as it stands, because the Constitution has listed all the local governments it recognizes. The ones that are created by the states should be recognized by the constitutions of the states if they have one.
Do you think that, you know,
unless until the amendment is made final?
Do Do you think more work needs to be done on the Constitution to harmonize this seeming contradictory parts? Or do you think that the National Assembly hasn't come out to explain itself as clearly as it should?
Nigeria's Constitution it's unbelievable sometimes when you're going through it.
But there's a recent part now, if I remember properly, where the House of Reps said, look, we have to, I think they amended the Constitution with respect to giving themselves powers to make laws for the entire country, as well as to come up with a new Constitution. How about that?
I've always had this problem with the Constitution. I've always said that we have a Constitution in our hands. Yes, it is not perfect. Yes, it needs a lot of work. But then the process of amending it and getting the effective Constitution that the people of Nigeria wants, the procedure and the modalities upon which to do that is pretty difficult, because it has to go through state assemblies. State assemblies are controlled by governors. Governors are looking out for their own interests. It's a complete mess. The procedure is rigorous. It's almost impossible to get anything sensible done. But nevertheless, I think the House of Representatives, by saying that they are cutting off all that, is arrogating to themselves too much powers. But for the purposes of expediency, we'll wait to see how that works out.
All right. Let's flip to this next matter, the registration of APC. Of course, there's a matter in court about APC. There's a letter before, I think letters before INEC about APC. Let's start off with this comment, which comes in from Kaide Do, spokesperson for INEC chairman, who at the time about this registration of APC, he is quoted to have said, well, the 30-day period is not expired. So at the moment, work is ongoing. The talk about INEC being there to frustrate the registration of APC is baseless and a needless hysteria. So with respect to registering APC, he seems to be suggesting from his comment here that the APC, those who are making all of those noise, are simply making a mountain out of a molehill.
I totally agree with him. I totally agree with with Mr. Ido. I've never seen any problem. I've had a lot of phone calls. We've received a lot of emails at our forum about what is going on with the APC registration. And I tell people we're going to get registered. There's no question about it. We're already, it's like a baby that has been born already and he's waiting for christening. And you're saying that the baby does not exist until he's named. It doesn't make any sense. Nothing is going to stop us. The case that is in court, it's a case between INEC and African People's Congress. We don't share the same name. You cannot fight over an acronym. You can only fight over a name. Our name is All Progressives Congress. Their name is African People's Congress. We don't share the same name. INEC refused to register them, not because their name is African People's Congress. It's because they have not fulfilled the requirements that is needed by law. So that's why they are in court. It has nothing to do with us. It's as good as saying that another political party there wants to get registered, it has taken INEC to court, and then it stops other political parties from being registered. It makes no sense. It has absolutely nothing to do with us. It's not whether we are going to get registered, it's when. And once the 30 days climaxes, we're automatically going to get it registered. There's no question about that.
All right, let's look at this scenario. Assuming both parties were to be registered by INEC, different names, same acronym, how do you see it playing out?
It can be. It can be. The first party that gets registered gets to choose its own acronym. The second party that comes in can choose the same acronym again. And we're already on course to be registered in the next few days, in the next 2-3 days, maximum. We will get registered. We will use our own acronym APC. There's no question about that. They can come back and use any other acronym they want, but certainly not APC anymore.
But that's part of what they're fighting for, that acronym, not just the name. That's why they're in court.
You can't. No, they didn't go to court over an acronym. They went to court because they were not registered by INEC. It's not over an acronym issue. You can only use an acronym if you are registered by INEC.
If I get that properly, many of the messages they've sent across to people, including to us, is that they have that name and they own the acronym. They approach INEC first, and as such, they are entitled. In fact, they call themselves APC.